Welcome everyone to our Wednesday session, and this is part two of the distant and in-person sessions, and which is better. And actually, you know, whether one is better or not is really kind of dependent a lot on you because it's all in how comfortable you are. If you aren't comfortable with in-person sessions, then an in-person probably isn't going to be as effective as a distant session. And it could be vice versa too. If you feel better being in person with an animal, then the session is going to go better. But remember, energy is energy. You don't have to be in the same room with the animal. I know that one time I was hearing about a woman who's doing medical Reiki, and she was saying that she had to be in the room where they were doing surgery on animals, and it was a very cramped room. And I was thinking, you could sit right outside the door and not impose yourself, and that would still have the same effect, right? But a lot of times our human ego says, oh gosh, no, we have to be in that same room. So it's just something to really be aware of for yourself. Ask those important questions. Why do I feel the need, to be with the animal if really it's just as good for you to be with the animal distantly? Or why do I have to be right next to the animal? Why do I have to touch the animal? All those different questions. Just ask yourself. And really, there's no judgment on this because we've all been there. I've been there. I still go there. And I have to ask myself these questions in order to keep myself honest. I don't want my ego to get in the way of my session. So I forgot to put everybody on mute. So I'm going to do that really fast. Okay, great. So let's get right into this. So first of all, last 2 weeks ago, we talked about how to prepare ourselves, right? And it's so important that you prepare yourself. But now we're going to talk about how do you prepare the human for something they may or may not be ready for. So one of the best things that you want to do always is you want to explain what Animal Reiki is. And you might be thinking, oh, I know when I first started, it was like, oh my gosh, it's too much for me to explain, because you get overwhelmed by, oh, it's a Japanese system and it was invented, blah, blah, blah. You don't have to do all that. Okay. Keep it simple. The simpler you can keep it, the better, because people start to glaze over, especially when you start saying Reiki and created by a Sui Macau, all these things. And they're just like, what? Just keep it simple. So you could keep it simple by telling them, what our form of Animal Reiki is. It's a meditation practice that helps animals relax. And when animals relax, their entire system softens, right? And that in that space, that's where healing shifts can happen. We are not healers, but we create a space. And so, just a second, I need to add some more people. Sorry about that. So, oh gosh, of course, and then I lose my notes. Okay, here we go. Great. So we want to just kind of give them a very simple rundown on what Animal Reiki is, right? It promotes relaxation and stress relief, emotional and energetic balance. And this is really important because, animals can have food, water, love, shelter, but if their emotional needs aren't being supported, then they can have issues. And that's where we come in. And Animal Reiki is so amazing for the emotional needs of animals, for helping to heal and support them. It enhances natural self-healing. It's always hands off unless the animal initiates, and the animal leads always. And what that means is if the animal isn't happy or wants to go take it somewhere else or wants to go in the next room, that's fine. We're very open to what the animal wants. Another thing that Lauren Murphy, one of my students and a Sarah teacher, says is, and this is true, is Animal Reiki helps animals to then self-regulate, right? So when we meditate, when we're calm, we can then self-regulate our nervous system, meaning that if we're really stressed out and we're in a safe and calm environment, we can finally start to let go of that stress. The good news with animals is animals can let go of stress very quickly. Humans, not so much. So that's why this can be a really effective practice. Sometimes you can have some huge shifts with animals just because animals can sometimes be more quick to let go of their drama and their trauma than humans. So then you want to tell them what you actually do, right? We don't diagnose, we don't treat, we don't heal. All we're doing is holding a very peaceful and calm space where animals feel safe. We're not fixing, we're not changing energy, we're not beaming energy, we're not healing any medical conditions. We are supporting their emotional well-being. And when an animal feels supported, everybody wants to be seen, heard, and appreciated, that's when healing can happen, however that looks. Like, for example, when my, you know, 17, 18-year-old pit bull was getting ready to pass, I wasn't trying to fix him, I wasn't trying to heal him. I was trying to create a space where he felt safe, he felt supported. And I think I did a pretty good job because of the way he passed. It was just so beautiful and just so peaceful. And that is the gift that we can give these animals and to their people. Um, Again, we're helping the animals self-regulate. And then if you're let animals lead certified, or even from the old school days of when it was just, Animal Reiki source, Animal Reiki, you have the code of ethics. And that's something that you can hand to the person saying, this is the code of ethics I follow, which is also really powerful to do when you're dealing with someone who may or may not know what Animal Reiki is. And you can show, hey, I'm a professional and this is the code I follow. And then the benefits for animals, relaxation, releasing of stress behaviors. And you just want to be really careful, right? It's not like this is an overnight cure. Always, work with a behaviorist, but this can help. And a stressed dog can experience less pacing, less panting, less hypervigilance. They might lay down, they might yawn, they might sigh, they might go to sleep. They might eat, they might drink. There's all different things that could happen. But what usually happens when an animal, like let's say the animal goes to eat or the animal goes to drink, they're a lot more calm about it. Or when the animal, like a cat, starts to clean themselves, they're a lot more calm about it. So you can tell that it is taking effect. And then for humans, so if the human decides to sit with you and they decide to participate in the session, they can experience lower tension, right? Clarity, calmer presence. And when I say clarity, it's like clarity of what's happening, seeing it for what it is and not for what their hyper emotional state is telling them that is. So, for example, if an animal is getting ready to pass, the human is very focused on how they feel, right? And that clarity that they can find in a session with their animal is the clarity of, oh, this isn't just about me, and my animal needs me to be calm. So it's really important that we share that with the humans. If they'd like to participate, and no pressure, we never want to pressure the human to participate, but we just want to sorry, there's more people coming in here. We just always want to make sure that they know that they're also going to benefit from this calmer presence and also a strengthened bond with the animal. And I see this all the time, that when they actually participate in the session, participate in what's going on with their animal, then they can actually deepen that bond, because the animal sees, oh, they're calm, they're supporting me, right? They brought this person in and they feel more supported. So it's really important that we share that with the human. And again, you don't want to pressure them, but just so they know, oh, this could really help. Because if I'm getting if I'm getting a session for my animal for the first time, and the practitioner doesn't tell me, I don't know anything about Animal Reiki, and the practitioner doesn't tell me, oh, it's really great if you participate because this, and this, then I'm like, oh, okay, great. But if they just said, yeah, it would be great if you could participate, but no pressure, then I'm thinking, well, probably not a big deal for me to do that, right? This is for the animal, it's not for me. And the reality is, it's for the relationship, it's for the bond, it's for the both of you, and it's for the human, because when the human is calm, the animal will get calm. And it's that infinity, right? It just goes back and forth. When you're calm, the animal's calm. When the animal's calm, you could become calm, vice versa. And we just have to remember that this work isn't about dramatic healing moments, although they will happen. It's about subtle, just steady shifts, and relaxation and their behavior over time. So although animals can experience a huge healing shift, that's not what Animal Reiki is about. We're there to just support. It's a very subtle, it's a very passive kind of support. So we just always want to make sure that we share that. Because it sets expectations, like we talked about a couple weeks ago. It's important to share expectations. And you could say, so I came up with this one kind of line thing that you could say. Animal Reiki is about creating peace inside yourself so the animal can choose how they want to join you, right? And so that peace creates compassion, it creates permission, and it creates respect. When we're peaceful, when we're not stressed, and this is for the human, right? When you're not stressed, then your animal can then choose what's comfortable for them and not feel pressure, because that pressure also affects how they're reacting, right? So let's go into how long is the session supposed to be? I'm just going to go into really practical steps here. And if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and throw them into the chat so that I can answer them, kind of async. So just feel free to put any questions or comments or anything, and we can stop and kind of talk a little bit about that. So the session length, and make sure you set this up before you book. So I don't know if you're going to have like a website or a Facebook page, or if you're just talking to someone, you might want to explain, this is what Animal Reiki is, this is what it does and doesn't do, and here is how long the session would be. So you want to book a session for 60 minutes total. Now, if you're doing it distant, that's not going to be the case, because you just do a 30-minute session. And then you're just going to have to factor in on each end of that, your email correspondence or your phone correspondence. And then on the back end of that, the follow-up, the ending, this is what, how was that for you? What did your animal do? I felt a lot of peace. Want to be really careful when we're sharing, but we'll get into that in a minute. So you want to book 60 minutes for an in-person session. So it'd be 15 minutes for settling and conversation, and then 15-minute for wrap up. I always factor in like an hour and a half, because it never really goes about 15 minutes, because when you come in, sometimes it takes the person some time to settle down, which then affects the animal and settling down. But just as a rough kind of guideline, 60 minutes total. You want to make sure that they understand that the environment should be someplace where the animal feels very comfortable. We don't want to be forcing anything. That maybe you might play music. I always play music, but that's a personal choice. I like it because I like it for myself. When I meditate, it's very easy for me to meditate and walk people through meditations when there is calming music playing, because it slows me down. And that's really important for me, because as you know, I talk really fast. But you do whatever you like, silence is fine too. And, when you're doing these, the more you do them, the easier it's going to become. And also, you're going to find your own way. This is my way. This is what I do. I know that Kelly does some of these, Kathleen does some of these. These are, it's coming from my perspective, so it's what I do. But I'm hoping that maybe there's some guidelines here for you, and you can take what you like and then, just do with what you will with the rest. It's your practice. You're the one that's going to be working with the animal, so you have to be comfortable in that. So human participation. Again, we want to encourage the human, but not necessary. But if they do decide to participate, they may sit next to you. They may sit across from you. They may, sit with the animal, whatever. That's totally fine. And then Elizabeth says, also super helpful to not do around is dinner time. Yes, absolutely. You don't want to be doing it when it's around exercise time, when it's around their feeding time. When they're going to sleep, that's a fine time to do it, but definitely not around food and feeding time. Now, with horses, sometimes you may not be able to help that. And so don't worry about it. With dogs and cats, it's a little different, because they're a little more, intense about eating sometimes. Whereas horses, they go over and they're intense at first, but then they kind of slow down. So yes, definitely. Thank you so much for that, Elizabeth. I appreciate that. And so we want to make sure too, that when we're talking to them about this and they want to give us these medical issues, right, about their animal, we want to make sure that we're not taking in the medical. We don't need to know what's happening with the animal medically. And in fact, I know that this is something we share in Sarah. It's something that a lot of people have experienced, animal Reiki practitioners. When you get the medical information, your mind will naturally start to focus on that medical situation. So if you want to really be of service, just let the medical information that they go. Like I did, was my last in person was Millie, the golden retriever who has cancer. And so they told me a little bit about her cancer. And so, yeah. But I didn't focus on the cancer. My role wasn't to heal the cancer. And I told them that straight, right front and center. And then, you can tell them about, again, how the animal might wander, they might leave, they might eat, they may ignore you, they might even try and play. And all of that is fine. And be prepared for that. Be prepared for the unexpected. Be prepared for that the animals might be really rambunctious. They might be barking. They may not stop barking. You can, if that's the case, if you're going to a situation where the animal is very, out of control, you can bring earbuds to, kind of pipe music to calm you down. Or, and obviously always, again, it goes back to 2 weeks ago, you want to make sure that you're very prepared for this, right? And then you just want to tell them, the aftercare, but we'll get to that too in a minute. But it's just something that when you're this is when you're very first talking to them, you just want to make sure that it's like, hey, this is what's going to happen. And then, afterwards, you're going to want to make sure that they have water, that they have rest, and then just watch for subtle shifts. And then, I always ask, jot down anything they notice, whether they think it's small or not, because it can make a difference. And it also helps them to start, paying attention to what little shifts might be happening, because little shifts add up to big shifts. One of the most important things you want to do before you even start is that you want to set your prices. And this is something that you need to do for yourself before you even put anything on paper, before you even share. You have got to get in your mind what your price is going to be. Now, I can't tell you what your price is going to be because different areas dictate different pricing. On the West Coast, pricing is a little higher. I charge $125 to go to someone for a Reiki session. Some people charge less than that. If I do a distance session, it's usually $45, but you can work with that. It doesn't have to be. So for yourself, set your price and do this and be comfortable with it. See where in your body you feel any tension when you set your price, because if you're not comfortable with your price, you're not going to be comfortable selling your services. So always be really comfortable with what you're charging, and then be sure that you're very upfront in your pricing, right? Make sure that you're not discounting when they start to haggle with you. You need to be really firm in your pricing. And the reason for that is that people need to know you have boundaries, right? And so, like, I love how Brene Brown, I love this saying that she says, to be clear is to be kind. To be unclear is to be unkind. So we always want to just be very clear in our pricing and in what we do. And that's why another reason I love studying with Taya, because Taya is very clear. She has very clear boundaries about things. And I really love that. And she's very comfortable with her boundaries. She doesn't feel like, oh, well, I'm putting up this boundary and what if they don't like me? Or what if this doesn't go well? No, just be really comfortable. You can offer packages. So we always recommend 4 sessions because we know from years and years and years of experience that 4 sessions is very effective, but it's totally fine if the person only wants 1 session. That's totally fine. You could do a package like 4 sessions for the price of 3, or you could do 15 or 20% off if they buy more than 1, what that is. But again, you've got to feel this in your body. You've got to be very comfortable with it, because if you don't feel comfortable with the pricing, I promise you, you will not feel comfortable with any of your services. And this is just something, it goes back to our deserve level. It goes back to who we are. And I know this from experience. It's very hard for me. I do not like to charge for things. And I've had to really, really work on this. So this isn't any type of judgment. This is, I'm sharing with you what works. You have to just be comfortable and say it over and over until you don't feel any tension in your body. You've got to be very comfortable about your pricing. And then make sure that, you know, your policies are clear too. The policies are, and I feel like this chat keeps moving. So I hope that you aren't chatting and I can't see. Oh, and then Gretchen said, sorry, Gretchen, I missed this because it went to me personally. When she's at the Humane Society, this goes back to the length of the session. She only does 20 to 30 minutes or group distance. Yes. And that's when you're volunteering, Gretchen. And that's a really good thing. When we're going to someone's house, or we're going to do this as a service to someone, like not the shelters and rescues, and we can do one on offering sessions at the shelter, because that is different. But you always want to make sure that at a home or as a client, it is 30 minutes. And then, yeah, Diane says, that's me. I will be clear and not feel bad anymore. Laugh out loud. And then Judy says, I do distant healing sessions that is not specific to one animal. For example, a few horses at the barn, animals at the shelter I volunteer. Do you have recommendations? I pick a time at my convenience. Okay, so Judy, again, this goes back to charging. If you're not charging, then you can do whatever you want. But if you're charging, then we have to have very clear boundaries. And again, it sounds like I should do a session on distant and in-person sessions for shelter animals specifically. But this is more for if you're going to charge, then you want to make sure that it's one animal. If they say, oh, it's both animals and they want both, you can say, okay, well, I'll do both, 30 minutes. And we all know it's still going to be the same. Energy is energy. But again, there has to be clarity about that, right? So and also this brings up another good point. And so thank you for this, Gretchen. If another animal decides to join or lay with that animal and they say, oh, they laid with them and it was their session, that's okay. That's okay. It's energy. It's shared. We don't have to worry about that, right? Or if another animal comes in the room, they might say, oh my gosh, this animal is here. They probably shouldn't be here because it's not their session. It's totally fine. All the animals come in. But our focus, our intention is to hold space for this animal, right? So clarity, again, we have to be very clear about what we're doing, what we're offering. So your payment timing, I would get payment up front because you want to have a cancellation policy. If they cancel, you can say, well, you forfeit 50% of your fee, or you could be a little more generous and say 25% of your fee, but you should have a cancellation policy. You can go on AI and AI will help you create a really nice, solid cancellation policy. Just tell AI what it is you're offering, what it is you'd like to see happen for a cancellation. Is it 24 hours? Is it 48 hours? Whatever that is. And then how much you're going to charge for cancellation, if anything. And then a rescheduling policy, how, if they pay $100, how soon do they have to use that $100? Do you have a rescheduling policy? Travel boundaries, be very clear on your travel boundaries. I donated, this is a while ago, I donated a session of 4 to a rescue, and I didn't think about the travel. And so the people ended up being like 45 minutes to an hour away from me. And I was like, but I had to do it, right? Because I didn't put my travel boundaries. I didn't say that if you live further than, 30 miles or whatever from me, then it's going to be a distant session, right? So be very, very clear. So what do you need to know before any session? You want to ask them for their name, right? The name of the animal. A photo would be great if they have one, but don't ask about their medical issues, any diagnoses, any emotional stories, because you're here to support the animal in that moment. You're not here to dwell on the past or to focus on medical issues that you are not there to heal. If you go in there with the intent that I am going to heal an animal, then you better heal that animal, right? Because that's what they expect. So we always want to make sure that that is not the expectation. Yes, a healing might occur, but a healing might not occur, or the healing might look a lot different than what you were there for. You also don't offer animal communication. Now, that doesn't mean that you aren't going to get messages, and I'm going to beg you on this. Do not share animal communication messages in your animal Reiki session. And there's two reasons why. One is if you go in and offer a session to an animal and you do a reading and an animal Reiki session, one, you can't do both at the same time, but let's just say you do. And you tell the person all this stuff. And then let's say you can't do the second session. So you call me and I do it. And they're like, what'd you get? Didn't get anything. And even if I did, I'm not going to share that necessarily because that's not what the session was about. The session is a relaxation session. It's to support the animal's emotional needs. Now it seems like, well, then what is animal Reiki? I thought I would get messages with animal Reiki. No, animal communication, you get messages. Now, here's the thing. If you get messages and you feel like, oh, it's important, the animal wants to share, you can say, look, this was an animal Reiki session. I do offer animal communication sessions. You can even offer a discount if you feel like, oh, I feel like I should say that. You could say, I'll charge you half of what, because I know that, a lot of times when I'm doing Reiki, I get messages, but I don't stop to have a conversation because that is not what animal Reiki is, right? Animal Reiki is relaxation. It's not active, it's passive. Animal communication, very active. You've got to verify, you've got to validate, right? So you can say, I offer animal communication services, and that keeps your business very viable, right? So you've got animal Reiki services and you have animal communication services, and that gives you two different modalities that you can offer and that you're very good at both, right? And Elizabeth says, how do I deal with not knowing about physical conditions when I do? Well, we're not talking about massage and acupressure. So that's something completely different. This is animal Reiki. So if you're doing animal Reiki with massage and acupressure, yeah, I mean, I don't do those, Elizabeth. So you can ask for those, but this is for animal Reiki only. So yeah, I would not know because I don't do those modalities. So I don't know what it is, what kind of background you need in order to be effective for that. What do you mean? How do you deal with having to know that stuff? You just ask them. I mean, well, again, I don't, this is hard for me to answer because I don't do those. So what I would say is if that is something in your profession as a massage and acupressure therapist, if you need to know the medical background, then ask for the medical background. But for animal Reiki, this is not what we're doing here. And then if they offer medical details, you can say, thanks, that's helpful for you to know, but I don't need it to support your animal. Now, and thanks to Caprice. Caprice sent in a lot of questions, which made me go, okay, I need to dig a little deeper and answer her questions and kind of give you all a very full picture of what this looks like. So thank you so much for asking about the medical conditions, Caprice, because that is something that comes up so often in animal Reiki. Do we need to know the medical conditions? Absolutely not. And it's better if you don't. Now, of course, generally you might know, and that's totally fine. But we never want to be focusing on the medical part of this. We're not there. That's not what our role is. We're not going to heal. So in-person session, step by step. Night before, you're going to ground yourself. You're going to do the precepts or whatever it is that gets you in a very grounded space. You're going to connect with the animal. Of course, Caprice, I'm so glad you're here for this. You're going to ground yourself. You're going to connect with the animal. Remember, we talked about that last time. That is one of the best ways that you can have a great session the next day is connect with that animal the night before. And having a picture is sometimes really helpful. I know for me, I like to look at the picture. I like to just send love and gratitude or hold it and just envelop it in light, say, I'm so excited to come and see you. Or if it's a distant session, maybe you put the picture in front and you just make that connection that way. I know that that's really helpful For me, I know it's helpful for other people. So again, it's really up to you, but a picture can be helpful. Even if they just send it to you on your phone, you don't have to have it emailed to you. Always be really flexible with the humans too. You never want to be like, So, for your, right when you get there, you're going to have your conversation. You want to keep it simple, just, restating your role, reset expectations, explain the flow of the session, find out if they want to join you or not. That's when you're going to let them know, are you going to play music? Are you not? Let the animal choose a spot that they prefer. There's no need to rearrange the house. Like if they prefer to be on the patio, you go sit on the patio. If they prefer to be in the living room, you go sit in the living room with them, wherever the animal is the most comfortable. And then, making sure that if the human wants to join, great. If they don't, that's fine too. If the home is chaotic, you walk in and the home is being really chaotic, then what you might want to do is you might ask, oh, is there a calmer place that we can go? Now, if let's say it's a very small house or a small place and there is no place to go, you're just going to have to dig deep to create that calm within yourself, which again is like you can say, okay, then I'm going to put in some music in my ears and I'm just going to come down. Or that's when you play music out loud, but you're really going to have to keep that focus on just creating that peace and calm within you. Remember, let them know that if the animal leaves, that's totally normal. If the animal ignores you, that's completely normal. Again, reiterate that hands aren't used, but if the animal comes up and you feel like, and if a dog like backs their back end into you, you can always just very gently put out your hands. But again, we're not beaming, we're not putting Reiki through our hands. It's just as a comfort modality. And then you're going to tell them that you're going to be meditating. If you want to do a chair treatment, if they do want to participate, you want to do a chair treatment, you'll explain what a chair treatment is. If you want to walk them through just a breathing exercise like we do, just the breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth, that's a really simple one to do. And it's it's scientifically proven. It's a Stanford experiment. You're just breathing in. We do this all the time here. We breathe in slowly through your nose, pull it down to your belly, expand your belly, and then slowly release your breath out your mouth. And you can just walk them through maybe the count of 4. They breathe in, they hold for 1, 2, and then breathe out for 6 to 8 counts. And you do that for about 4 or 5 times, and then just let them sit, and then just talk them through just holding onto their breath. One thing you can do that I like to do is that I like to have the human, once they're calm and they're kind of, ready to be in that meditative state, to envision their animal happy, to envision their animal at their most joyful, right? So maybe that's running on the beach. Maybe it's doing zoomies in the backyard. Maybe it's playing with their favorite toy. Maybe it's just laying and basking in the sun. Tell the human to just imagine that and to be in that space with the animal where they're at their happiest, because it helps them to let go of what's happening to their animal, and it helps them see that deeper layer of joy. And so you're going to do that. And 30 minutes can seem like a really long time. You want to make sure you have a timer if you need one, or a watch, or if you like, I have a certain song track. It's one song and it's actually 30 minutes. So I play that every single time. And what it does for me too, it's like Pavlov's response. As soon as I hear that music, boom, my body just goes in, okay, boom, we're in this. And that actually helps the animal as well. But I just want to make sure that you're able to just get into that space, help the person get into that space. And then at the end of the 30 minutes, you want to slowly return, right? You just want to kind of in a quiet way, ask how they feel, how was that for you? And then usually they'll say, oh, wow, it was really cool to watch, like Millie just relax, give a heavy sigh, just really get into that. Or maybe, it was really great to see Millie drink. She hasn't drank water in 2 days. Now she's drinking. Just allow them, that space to share. And then when they're done, you can say, oh, and these are the couple things I noticed. And then ask them to just kind of watch the animal for the next couple of days, remind them that the animal needs to relax, that the animal needs to have access to plenty of water, and then just to take a few notes, and you'll check back in with them in a yeah, you'll check back in with them, in a couple days or in 24 hours, whatever that is for you, whatever you want to set with the client. And so Gilly has a great question. Do you have a timer, say, on your phone with a bell noise at the end of 30 minutes? Insight Timer has those timers. So you can go onto Insight Timer. I know that Pamela Miles has a Reiki timer. So if you just Google Pamela Miles, Miles, and she's a very famous Reiki person. If you Google Pamela, I believe that she has on her site access to a Reiki timer. And I believe that that also has a bell, but I've never used hers because I've always used Insight Timer. But it is one that I offer in my classes as a resource. I found out about it from another student who uses it and really likes it. And I've heard good things about it, but I don't know if there is a bell at the end of it. So you'll have to look into that. So now that was an in-person. Okay. So now we're going to go to distant. Distance a little bit easier, right? Because it's distant. So for the intake, you're just going to ask for the name in the photo, right? And then you're going to explain to them, how distant Reiki works, a little bit different. They might go, well, how does this work? What do you mean you're going to be at your house? And so you might have to do a little more explaining, that animals are really sensitive to energy. That's how they communicate. They're sensitive to our intention. They don't need to be in the same room with us to feel safe, calm, and grounded. They just tune into us. And then, one example that I use, and sorry, I kind of like jumped here, but one example I use for that is usually people with cats and dogs notice this, and I don't know so much about horses, but maybe this is true as well. And Karen says, I like the idea of having music that matches the length of the session. Yeah, it is very helpful, Karen. I will say that. I've found a lot of success with that for me, because I don't want to be focused on the time. And that's what happens. It takes you kind of out of the space because you're like, how long has it been? Where I know that song, I think it goes a little over, it's like 33 minutes, but that's fine. But yeah, it's really key to find something. I think Insight Timer has music. You can go on, I used to recommend Spotify, but I can't anymore because they're not doing nice things. Maybe on Pandora, there is something, possibly Amazon Music. I'm not sure, but yeah, definitely that's key. But one of the examples that I give to people about energy and how animals are in tune to our energy is that we've all seen this. So let's say you have a dog, and either your son, your daughter, your husband, your wife, whoever is coming home, but they're about 10 minutes away, and all of a sudden the dog or the cat goes to the window, right? They know, and some people go, oh, that's just because they know it's the same time every night, but that's not true. Like it could be 9 o'clock at night, and they usually come home at 5, and the dog or the cat will go to the window or go to the door or be like, oh, they're coming home, right? That's energy. That is a connection. And that's what we're creating also. So 2 weeks ago, remember, or maybe it was 3 weeks ago, I gave you it is 2 weeks ago, I gave you the peer-reviewed study about distant Reiki. So here's your chance to give them that study and then share that. And I think that Kathleen on her Mighty Networks is featuring the author of that study. So you have to be a Mighty Networks member, but I think the free level will have access to that. And then, you can just close it by saying, animals are already very energetically in tune beings, and we get into that space when we're in that meditative space. So, thank you, Lindsay. Lindsay says, Julie True has music to journal by, and each piece is 30 minutes long. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for that, Lindsay. That is great. So if you want to look up Julie True, and I'll put a link to that in the recap. So if you don't catch it here. So, again, you want to make sure that the animal is at a point in the day where it's a relaxing point. So maybe their nap time, their bedtime, maybe after they've had breakfast, whatever that is, whatever works for your schedule too, because you're going to have to kind of work with your schedule and theirs. But just making sure that their setup is correct, right, for them, that it's relaxing, that it's comforting for them. Um, and they can sit with the animal if they want or not. It's good if they can kind of observe the animal, because then they can see, oh, wow, she was laying down and, she gave some really big, heavy sighs, right? One thing that Caprice asked about that I want to mention here is when we talk about setup, Caprice asked about doing the session over Zoom, right? So you would say, hey, we'll do the session on Zoom. I'll be meditating, your animal will be. I never do that. And I'll tell you, there's a couple different reasons why. And please, if you've done Zoom and you find it successful, please put that in the chat. But for me personally, I can't do Zoom, and this is why. I feel really weird being on camera. I like to go super deep. I like to just go in the space and for 30 minutes, and maybe I'm playing music or maybe I have my headset on, and I tried it once where you're like, okay, I'm going to go do this. It just was really awkward. The whole thing was awkward and I didn't like it. But if you can make it work for you, then great. That's great. And then, Kirsten, I'll get to yours in just 1 second. So yeah, so you can do Zoom, but I don't really see any reason to, because what you're going to be doing is, you're going to be doing email before, or maybe a phone call, and then, or maybe a Zoom session with the person before, but doesn't necessarily have to be right before. And then you're going to connect with them after. And I like to do mine at night when I know the animal is relaxing. I can pretty much guarantee it, like, 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night when the family's slowing down, then I know that the chances are that that animal is going to be relaxed. And so that's kind of my thing on that. And then, obviously you're going to be prepping the same way you would for an in-person. You're going to ground, you're going to breathe. And again, make sure you're connecting with that animal. And then the session would be 30 minutes and, just your regular session. And then at the end of the session, you could either within 24 hours or right after, just email them whatever you feel like emailing, and just be really conscious of not sharing too much. You want the person to be the one sharing what their observations are. And then you can kind of walk through them with it. If they're all like, well, I didn't notice anything. And you can say, oh, okay, well, what usually might happen is the animal might go into a deep sleep. They might start snoring. They might get up and eat, or they might start grooming. But everything is a very relaxed, calm state while they're doing it. And then that human might say, oh, yeah, actually, I did notice that my animal, blah, 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 either like just gave this huge sigh and then just went into this deep sleep and slept even deeper after the session was over, because that happens a lot of time as well. Just like that energy just keeps going, even though you may have stopped. It's like a bell that's ringing, the energy keeps vibrating out. So they might say, oh, they usually bark and they didn't when someone came to the door, all these little things. And you can tell them, you can kind of lead them a little bit, but you want to make sure that they have a chance to tell you first. And so Kirsten says, well, working with horses, I ask them first if I can share their space for meditation together at Reiki, and I do them at the end if they had, and I do ask them at the end if they had enough, if they did not give me a sign prior, if they are done like walking off, and they usually let me know when they've had enough or they need a little longer. So here's the thing about that. An animal, well, first of all, when your intention is, I'm going to do a 30-minute session, and again, this is why it's important to kind of connect with the animal. I have never really had an animal end this session early when their person was there. I've had them end it like after about 20 minutes, and I knew it was ended because the cat was like literally jumping in my face going, enough, enough, enough. That can happen. With horses, I always do the full 30 with horses just because they can walk off if they don't like it, because you're just meditating. Remember, you're not beaming. You're not doing anything that's causing harm. You're just meditating. So, and I noticed, and I will say this, the shift I noticed in animals not saying, okay, we're done, was when I stopped thinking I was offering something other than just a meditative space. As soon as I started to say, I'm just meditating, so they can take as much as they want or none at all, they stopped doing that. Like, because I'm trying to think the last time an animal stopped after 20 minutes or so, and it's been a really, really long time. So, something to keep in mind is, what's your intention? If you're just meditating, why wouldn't you continue to meditate for 30 minutes? And it's, they have that choice then to come and join and walk away. But if you're doing it for money, horses, I would just do the full 30 minutes, because if they don't like it, they walk away. If they start acting agitated, then yes, you need to stop. But if you're there with the intent, I'm going to meditate and hold space for you, there won't be any agitation, because they have the freedom to walk away. When animals don't have that freedom to walk away or to say no, that's when agitation starts. So again, we're talking about paid clients, and not sometimes, there are many times with horses, the horse is going to be in a stall. So if you notice that the horse is getting agitated with you, one, I would back up and then see if backing up helps, because the animal can't move freely. So any animal that's caged, or like you go to a gerbil or a bird and they start to act agitated, back up, back up. They can't get away from you, so back up. Then if you notice they start to calm down when you back up, oh, okay, they just weren't okay with me being so close. But then you do your meditation, you go into your meditative space. And then if they start, making a lot of noise or squawking, or like horses, if they start, wrestling about and, kind of moving and shaking their head and going, okay, this is enough, then yes, you can end it. But I'm pretty sure if you go in there with that intent I'm meditating, you can share with me or not. It's completely up to you, because remember, that is the choice we give them at the beginning of the session. I am going to be meditating, and you can join in or not. But if you change your intention in the middle of that, and you start to focus on that animal, and you start to focus on what's wrong with that animal, I can guarantee you that animal is going to say, you just lied to me. You told me you were holding space. Now you're focusing on what's wrong, and that doesn't feel good to me. Now, I've seen that happen a lot in classes, because as soon as your mind starts going, oh, I wonder if this is helping this, or I wonder if I should start, focusing on just surrounding this part of their body with light, right? Not really beaming, I'm surrounding them with light. That is when you have broken your own code. So now you've broken trust. So we have to be really careful when we're going in with animals that we are true to our word, because we're humans. We want to fix, we want to help, but we have to trust that this beautiful meditative space that we're creating is helping. It is supporting them, and it's supporting them on a level that sometimes we can't even see. It's supporting them so deeply at their inner core. And for us too, that's what Reiki does for us too, except for as humans, we need that. We need to know, oh, they're beaming, they're surrounding me in light, in love. I love that. Animals know, especially when your intention is, when you first start, remember, you're telling their humans, this is what it is, da, 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 da. And then you break everything and start focusing on what's wrong. And that could cause a situation. So Karen says, I've done Zoom with all the video and mics off. I play music through the Zoom audio share. It's worked out well. Yeah, that's a great idea. I like how it allows for sharing or discussion afterwards, or I've done a phone call to start and then call them back at the end. I love that, Karen. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, for me, it doesn't work, but that doesn't mean it won't work. That doesn't mean that you can't make it work. This is your practice. You're not me, I'm not you. So you've got to do what feels comfortable to you. And maybe Zoom feels really comfortable. And thank you so much, Karen, for sharing those tips, with all the video and mics off, but she plays music through Zoom. And that way the person, all they do is they hear music. And then that way you can share before. It's just almost like an in-person session, right? You can share before and then you can share after. And it, the good thing too is if you can do a little chime or a little something at the end when the music stops, or maybe you can tell them ahead of time, hey, when the music stops, that will be the end of the 30 minutes. And then you and I will come back on Zoom and we'll have a discussion. So thank you so much, Karen. See, because I'm thinking from a very narrow mindset. It's like, I don't want to do Zoom. So that's mine. So I really appreciate you sharing. And again, this is why we have this beautiful community, because I am not the be all end all. And we work together and we get ideas. And so, or I've done a phone call back to back. Yeah. And you can do that as well. So we just have to remember that when we show up for these animals, that we're showing up, just like I was saying a minute ago, is that we're just showing up with calm, with peace, with presence, and with the intent that we're holding space for them, right? That we're not there to fix or heal them. Because when we say we're there to heal or we're there to fix, what are we saying to the animal? That they're broken, that they need to be fixed. And then all of a sudden we're putting ourselves here and the animal is here. And really the reality is the animal is up here and we're down here. And when we're in that beautiful space with the animal and we're in that space of gratitude, they want to be in that space with us. They flourish in that space with us, right? They want that connection, that deep, beautiful connection. Thanks, Karen. That deep, beautiful connection where nothing is being expected of them, yet they are being showered with love and gratitude and appreciation. And the space that we're creating is so calm. And if they're coming from a space where their person is completely stressed out about what's happening to them and they can't calm their person down, they're frustrated. So when we come in with this beautiful calm energy, and now they get to see their person is actually calming down too, oh, what a gift, right? So it's not just us offering this animal Reiki session and it's 30 minutes and yes, they're going to have peace. You're offering something so much deeper. You're offering peace of mind, not only to the animal, but to the person. And that again is like this, right? The animal's calm, the person's calm, the person's calm, the animal's calm. It goes like this. So just make sure that when you're going in, you're prepping yourself so that you're in a nice, strong space, so that you're not thrown, because people will throw you. I remember one time I was just starting and this woman had me come and do Reiki with her boxer. He had a little tumor on his ear. And it was when I wasn't charging, I was just, starting. I think I just taken level 2 with Kathleen. And she wanted to know if it was okay for her to put her dog down. And I was like, oh my God, this dog is healthy. This dog is like, oh, but she was an older woman on a very limited income. So what I did was I went in and this was before we were like really meditation strong. It was more like, I mean, there were still meditations, yes, all these, but it was harder for me too, because I was just starting out in my brain. So I was doing precepts, and in the energy of the precepts and in the energy of the breath of the meditation, Joshin Kokyoho, it was like, okay, I was saying to the animal, all is well. I didn't say all is well. I can't remember what I said, but it was something, because we weren't saying all is well then. I can't remember what it was, but it was kind of like that, like everything's okay, everything's okay. And just showing, and I asked the lady if she would like a chair treatment, and she did, and the boxer just calmed down. And so in that chair treatment, she was able to calm down, was doing the precepts, and then it just kind of came to me. It's like, just give her resources, right? Tell her, if you're worried about the tumor and you're worried that it's fatal, because I can't diagnose, that, call the Humane Society has, clinics, free clinics. And this is why it's kind of good to kind of be up on what's available in your community that's like for free, or for people who may not have money, like food programs and things like that, so that you can help them through that. Because I got the sense that she wanted to put her boxer down because she couldn't afford the medical care for him. And he was just all about loving her. And I reminded her of that. I said, he's here for you. Whatever decision you make, he supports your decision, because that is the truth. Animals do not judge us. They do not sit and go, oh, well, she put me down and I shouldn't have been put down. That is not what animals do. They love us unconditionally before, after, when they're here with us, when they leave us, they love us unconditionally. They know we're flawed. They know we're humans. They don't expect us to be perfect. So when you come up against a situation like that, you just want to make sure that through the energy of the precepts, that you're being compassionate to the person and that you're not judging them because you don't know what they're coming through. And I'm telling you right now, Reiki can heal these things. I remember one of my students, and I think I've shared this before, she was doing Reiki with a horse and the horse was not being treated well by the human. And she was really upset. She didn't know what to do. And so it was just like, you know what, just send Reiki to the situation, send Reiki to the situation. And I think within a week, she got a call from the woman and the woman said, oh, I'm going to rehome the horse. And so she rehomed the horse and it was a really good situation. So you never know what can come up because of Reiki. So just expect the unexpected in a good way, not in a bad way, not like when you walk into somebody's house and expect the unexpected, because you have to expect the unexpected when you walk into someone's house because you never know what you're going to be walking into, right? You could be walking into a hoarding situation. You could be walking into a situation where maybe the dog isn't really friendly to strangers, right? So you have to expect the unexpected. You might want to make sure if it's a dog you don't know, or even a cat you don't know. Cat bites are really dangerous. So, just make sure you get that kind of information from the person. You don't need to know the medical, but you might want to get just the behavior information from the human. Oh, do they like people? Do they like strangers? Same with horses. Are they comfortable with strangers? Are they shy of strangers? Because we don't want to come in, boom, here I am with this great modality and I'm going to help you. And they're like, whoa, 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 you're a stranger in my house and I don't trust this. And again, it's why we connect the night before. So I know we're at time. I'm so sorry. I had so much I had to share because I wanted to give you all a really complete kind of overview on what this looks like. And as I was creating this, I thought, gosh, I need to do an ebook on this that goes through even more, that digs deeper into all of these different things. And even, we need to do a call on the shelter animals, right? Because that happens a lot. You go to the shelter and you're like, oh my God, I'm at the shelter and all of these animals need Reiki. So what do I do? And there's lots of things you can do to help with that, Gretchen. So we will definitely do that. And maybe I was going to talk about something else, but maybe we should do that next week. We'll talk about sessions that way, because we're kind of on this roll here. So I will be sure to do that next week. So Karen Spinelli says, website last time. I like your reminder to us to remind the humans that we cannot diagnose or treat. Yes, it takes so much pressure off of you, so much pressure off of you. And again, remember, you are creating a service. You don't have to heal to make your services worthy. What you are offering is emotional support, which an animal can go to the vet. An animal can be seen by all kinds of practitioners. That doesn't mean the animal's emotional needs are being met or supported. So this is a huge service. It's something that no one else is offering, right? Like the vet's not offering this unless they have a Reiki practice there and they offer that. And I know that Mark Malik, who's on our board, he does offer that. But you're offering a really important service, especially to stressed animals. You're helping them to start to self-regulate, right? They start to calm down. They start to remember, oh yeah, I have access to the calm within me. So you don't feel like, oh, I'm not going to heal this issue, so my services aren't valuable. No, your services are incredibly valuable. And I want you all to remember that, because I remember when I first started out, I was thinking, well, it's energy and we aren't healers. And so really, what am I offering? Well, you're offering, the emotional support that these animals aren't getting. And that's very, very valuable. Ivana, I'm so glad that you like this. I'm so glad you found it helpful. Ivana's just starting her own business, so this is great for Ivana. And then Caprice, yes, I am glad you found this helpful. So hopefully I answered all of your questions. And then next week we'll answer these other questions that came through. about the shelter animals or rescue animals. Like, I know at Care, there's all kinds of animals. You go there and you just want your energy to go everywhere. Well, your energy can. And then Elizabeth, yeah, we'll talk about, when you volunteer and if it's, not for a specific animal. And I'm sorry, yeah, I don't know anything about massage and acupuncture. So hopefully you could get those answers. Yes, great. You're welcome, Elizabeth. So thank you all so much. Next week, we will just piggyback on this. And in the meantime, I know we didn't really have time for questions, but I'll make sure we have time for questions next week. Make sure if you have questions about what I shared today, that, you bring them to next week or you email me and I'm happy to share more information if I have it. And then also if you're a Sarah member, you have access to a couple documents that we have that talk about this. And also over the break, our office is closed. So I'm going to be definitely putting all of this into an ebook so that you have like a little guide on what to do, what to ask. And I'll even try to pull up with AI some of the refund and cancellation policies so you all can kind of have a guideline on what you can do. And again, use AI because AI can really help you with, I'm having a problem with pricing. Because remember, AI is internet. So you can say, hey, AI, what are people charging for Animal Reiki in my area? And if there's any information, AI will find it for you. You no longer have to go search for yourself. Hey, AI, what do people charge for, acupuncture treatments? What do they charge for massage? And then kind of get an idea, pet massage, pet acupuncture, all these different things. Then you can get a guideline. But AI is really good for helping you. But just here's the secret with AI, you guys. This is a magical phrase. You have to say it every single time. Before you start, ask me any questions. What that does for AI, it's like if I said to Sherilyn, hey, Sherilyn, go find me some information about what people are charging for Animal Reiki sessions. So Sherilyn kind of doesn't know exactly where to start, but she kind of knows. She'll go, okay, well, here's this information. That's not good enough. So if you tell AI, before you start, you give him, like, this is what I need. And then you say to AI, ask me any questions before you start. Then AI will come back with at least 4 to 5 questions. And it's great because you're like, oh yeah, you do need to know this. You do need to know this. And I'm always grateful because I forget, I'm in a hurry, I'm giving it information, and I don't think of everything it needs to know in order to give me the best response possible. So that's just something, if you do use AI for your business, if you do want to find out more information for like the refund policies, the cancellation policies, just make sure that you're using that prompt in AI. Ask me any questions before you start. And I promise you, you're going to get much better output because people say, oh, I don't like AI. It doesn't really do it. No. And remember, AI is not perfect. You have to make sure. And I always ask him after he gives me, I always call it him because he's not right all the time. And so it's a guy to me. I always say, are you sure this is correct? And then he'll look and he'll go, oh yeah, actually, this is not right. So make sure you ask them too at the end after he gives you all your stuff. Are you sure you're right? Don't mansplain stuff to me. You got to be a woman and say, I'm going to question that. Okay, everybody, I know I've gone over. Thank you so much for your patience. Thank you so much for your support and for being here today. And I can't wait to see you next week. Bye, everyone.